The cafe glowed in the amber light of early evening, a warm little refuge from the October chill outside. Through the wide front window, city lights blinked and blurred against the glass, but inside the world was alive with voices, laughter, and the steady hiss of the espresso machine. Waiters carried steaming cups between tables, and the hum of conversation floated all around. To Clara, it was like a painting she could never fully step into. She watched the room with careful eyes, lips reading half-formed words from strangers' mouths, but most of it drifted away like smoke. She sat at a table tucked in the corner, dressed in a soft blue dress patterned with small embroidered flowers. The fabric was a comfort, chosen deliberately so she wouldn't feel too plain or too loud. She smoothed the skirt over her knees as if to steady her trembling hands. Tonight mattered more than she wanted to admit. It was her first blind date, set up through a mutual acquaintance who swore this man was kind, reliable, maybe even worth her trust. Clara clung to that fragile hope, the kind she often tucked into the quietest parts of herself, where disappointment couldn't reach. Her phone sat on the table, screen lit with the notepad app open. She had prepared small phrases, polite questions, things to make communication smoother. She knew the nerves of someone meeting her would double when they realized she couldn't hear their words, so she tried to ease the process. She had learned long ago that it was always her responsibility to make others comfortable. The thought made her chest ache, but still, she wanted this to work. The door swung open with a sharp gust of air, and she saw him enter, a tall man, neat hair, pressed shirt. He scanned the cafe until his eyes found her, and for a fleeting moment, Clara's heart lifted. He walked over with a measured step. His lips shaped her name, Clara, and she nodded quickly, offering a bright smile. She turned her screen toward him, where the first line waited, "Yes, thank you for coming." He gave a curt nod, slid into the chair opposite her, and barely glanced at the message. Instead, he grabbed the menu, flipped it once, and sighed as though already inconvenienced. Clara's hands fidgeted in her lap. She typed another line, quicker this time, "I'm happy to meet you. I hope your day was good." She pushed the phone closer. He read it, and for a moment she thought he might respond kindly. But his lips twisted into something between discomfort and a smirk. "This isn't going to work," he said, his words slow enough for her to catch. Her smile faltered, but she forced herself to type, "Why?" He leaned back, crossing his arms, not even bothering to soften the sharpness of his mouth. "I didn't know you were deaf. I can't deal with that." His eyes slid away from hers, already done with the conversation. The words landed like stones. Clara had heard them before, in different forms, but never delivered so plainly, without effort, without care. It was as if he had come to her table, looked at her, and seen only absence. Her throat tightened. She tried to hold her composure, nodding faintly, pretending she wasn't shattering inside. He stood, pushing his chair back with a screech she couldn't hear but could feel in the floorboards beneath her shoes. "Good luck," he muttered, and just like that, he was gone. Clara sat motionless, staring at the latte cooling in front of her. She wanted to vanish into the wood grain of the table, to dissolve into the shadows of the cafe. Around her, voices lifted in laughter, forks clinked against plates, life went on, careless, unaware. She lowered her head, the sting rising in her eyes. Her hands wrapped around her phone, gripping it like an anchor. But movement tugged at the edge of her vision. From the next table over, a man was watching her. He wasn't staring with pity or discomfort but with a quiet, searching gaze. His little girl sat beside him, crayons scattered, lost in her own drawings. The man's shoulders were broad, his dark hair slightly mussed, and though he looked tired in the way single parents often do, there was gentleness in his eyes. When Clara's gaze lifted uncertainly to his hands moved. Slowly, clearly, he signed, "You deserve better." Her breath caught. For a heartbeat she thought she must have imagined it. But the man's eyes stayed on hers, steady and certain, his hands waiting still. Something inside Clara, heavy and crumpled moments ago, flickered with warmth. She hadn't expected anyone here to understand, let alone reach across the silence. And for the first time that night, she didn't feel completely alone. Clara blinked fast, her lashes damp, almost afraid the moment would vanish if she breathed too loudly. But the man across the way didn't look away. His hands lifted again, moving carefully, deliberately, each shape precise enough for her to follow without strain. "Are you okay?" he signed, his brows drawn with genuine concern. Her throat tightened, but she managed a nod. She lifted her hands hesitantly, signing back, her fingers a little stiff from nerves. "I will be." "Thank you." The man smiled, not with pity, but with a warmth that carried across the space between their tables. His daughter tugged at his sleeve, holding up a crayon-scribbled napkin. She whispered something into his ear, and he leaned down, chuckling softly. Then, to Clara's surprise, he guided the little girl's small hand through a few signs. The girl turned proudly toward her and signed with shy determination, "Nice to meet you." Clara felt a laugh bubble up, soundless but bright. She signed back gently, "Nice to meet you too." The little girl grinned wide and went back to her drawing, humming to herself, her hair falling in curls across her forehead. The man leaned forward slightly, making sure not to intrude too much, his hands folding on the table. Then he signed, slow but sure, "I'm Adam. This is Lily. She's learning because her mom was deaf." Clara's eyes widened. The words unfolded meaning she hadn't expected. She tilted her head, asking silently, but Adam answered before she could. He signed again, slower now, his expression softening, "She passed away 3 years ago. It's just us now." The weight of his honesty settled between them, not heavy, but tender. Clara's chest ached, not out of pity, but because she could see the strength it took for him to carry that truth openly. He wasn't hiding, wasn't ashamed of his story. He was simply sharing it, the way one shared something sacred. Clara raised her hands carefully, as if words needed reverence. "You're a good father," she signed, and meant it. Adam's mouth tugged into a crooked smile. He glanced at Lily, who had abandoned the napkin for stacking sugar packets, and then looked back. His reply came swift and firm, "And you're stronger than you know. That man, he didn't see you. That's his mistake, not yours." The words struck her like a hand reaching down into dark water. She felt seen in a way she hadn't in years, seen not as someone broken, not as a burden, but as someone worth defending. The sting in her chest loosened, replaced with something softer. She signed, slower this time because her fingers trembled, "I thought tonight would prove I don't belong anywhere. That I'd always be alone." Adam leaned in, his expression steady, his hands rising with a quiet conviction that made her pulse quicken. "You belong where you are valued. Where you are seen. Don't ever settle for less." Her eyes stung again, but this time it wasn't humiliation. Or sorrow. It was something warmer, something that glowed faintly in her chest. She reached for her phone, typed quickly, and turned the screen toward him. "Would you, maybe like to join me?" Adam read it, then looked back at her, and the slow, genuine smile that spread across his face was enough to melt the last of her defenses. He gave a small nod, gathered his daughter's crayons, and shifted his chair closer. Lily clambered happily onto the space between them, as if this had always been the plan. Clara's table, once so hollow, now felt full. Their hands began moving, words flowing through fingers and glances, sometimes filled with laughter, sometimes with pauses heavy with unspoken things. Lily interrupted often, showing off her napkin art or asking for help with a word, and Adam handled each interruption with the patience of someone who loved deeply. Clara found herself smiling more than she had in months, her heart loosening with every signed phrase. The bitter taste of rejection still lingered faintly, but it no longer owned her evening. Instead, something unexpected had bloomed, a fragile but undeniable connection. Not the blind date she had been promised, but perhaps something infinitely better, a glimpse of a new beginning. For the first time in a long while, Clara felt like she wasn't on the outside of life's noise, peering in through glass. For the first time, she felt like she belonged at the table.